What's going on, everyone? It's Simon, and today we are talking about all of the camera bag stuffs. One of the questions I get all the time is, what bags am I using? Why do I use them? So on and so forth. And so I figured I would talk about it because it's something I've used every major manufacturer's bags. I've used all of the different types of bags. Every bag has a different purpose. If someone tells you that there is one specific camera bag that is the bag for every situation, every bag has a different, or every job has a different need. Every situation, you need slightly different stuff. And yeah, so I've got all of the different types of camera bags. I don't have all of my camera bags because I would take way more space than this table. But I wanted to take a minute and talk about what the different camera bags are, how I've used them in the past, and how you could use them, pros and cons of every type of bag. So I'm gonna clear this off a little bit for a second, and then we're gonna dig right in. We're gonna go from smallest to largest, and we're gonna end on my favorite. All right, so we're gonna start off with the smallest of the bunch. That is the shoulder bag. This one is the retrospective 30 from Think Tank Photo. They're one of my favorite bag manufacturers because their products just last. I think this bag is 8 years old, 9 years old, and it still looks pretty much brand new except for the dog hair. And it still works perfectly fine. And when I've used this bag is for things like events and stuff like that where I have to quickly change lenses. It's nice having accessibility to lenses, and yeah. However, my downfalls for me are having only one strap. One shoulder always gets like kind of bogged down a bit. That's really one of the big downers for me, especially if I'm fully loading this with 4 or 5 lenses, 2 camera bodies, that kind of thing, where it's really not a light bag. And I know they make smaller ones where you can take less gear, but if I have to have all that gear on me for changing lenses during an event, it's the nature of the beast. Also, the fact that typically these bags don't have as much security because you want to have the quick access, so you're not going to have the same security as a well zippered bag. They do make some shoulder bags that have zippers, but when you're trying to shoot, it kind of defeats the purpose. That's shoulder bag, and I'll put links to all of the bags in the bio or in the description. Next, we've got this little Low Pro backpack, which is kind of like the Peak Design everyday bag. And I haven't used this bag a ton, but it's one of those where you've got all of the access on the sides so you can get whatever you need. It's also got the backpack or the laptop sleeve, which I like that. However, the same thing with the shoulder bag is it's got the lot of access, which is great, but that's also not great for security. So like if I was traveling overseas, as many places as this opens to let me get to equipment, it lets a stranger get into my bag to steal equipment. So that is not a great thing. That's kind of my big downfall. I also am not a huge fan of the backpack straps on this. That's just my personal preference. There's probably other bags that are similar that have better backpack straps, but I don't have them, so I wouldn't know. And also, it's not really the style of bag that I really like to use. Next, we're gonna jump into the slightly bigger backpack, which this is one that's been a workhorse for me over the years. And I love this thing. This is the Streetwalker HD from Think Tank Photo. And I love this bag, except for there's one major flaw for the type of work I do. And that is, if you look at the way it's sitting to open, the backpack straps are sitting on the ground. So if I'm in the muddy area of the DR Congo, things like that, the place sitting on the ground is the thing that's gonna go on my back. So I'm gonna get my back all sorts of muddy and things like that, which is not great when you're out in the field for a long day and you don't want to have to put like a sopping wet bag onto your shoulders. That's really the biggest downfall of this bag. Other than that, I love the fact that it's got a lot of flexibility and modularity, and it does have a separate space for a hard drive or a computer. And yeah, so that's kind of some of the things about this type of bag that I don't like. This is kind of like your general backpack. There's a lot of these out there from every company. This one is just the one that I have used over the years. And again, one of the things I love about Think Tank Photo is this bag I've had since 2012, and it still looks pretty stinking good for having been abused and traveled all around the world a bunch. Next up, we're gonna go to the roller bag, which is probably my second most used type of bag out there. This one is the Think Tank Photo Airport International. I forget which version it is. I've had it since 2011, and like all the other Think Tank bags, it still looks pretty stinking good. I've changed all the zipper pulls on them to neon green, and the reason for that is all of my black bags that I have that I regularly use, I change the zipper pulls to green, so that way it's easy for me to identify my bag when I'm out in public. These bags are really nice and low profile, but having that like subtle unique identifier makes it so that, especially if I'm with other photographers, I can easily find my bag if other people have the exact same bag without being too insanely gaudy and obnoxious. Things that I love about this type of bag is you can hold a lot of equipment and you're not going to hurt your back carrying a lot of equipment. And so if I'm doing a job where I have to haul a lot of stuff and I know I'm flying, this is my go-to bag, especially if I'm staying stationary once I get to the location. If I'm able to kind of like have a base camp where I settle, this is definitely my go-to bag. I've done many a job, both in the US and overseas, where I'm not allowed to put down equipment, so this doesn't necessarily work as well because we don't have a storage area. And so yeah, but again, tons of equipment. I can fit the FS5, a couple A7 bodies, a bunch of lenses in here, and still get it onto a plane. If they were to weigh it, I'd get in trouble, but I usually don't have that problem. But yeah, so that's the roller bag. I like this especially because of the fact that it looks like a normal bag versus looking like a camera bag, which leads me to the next one, which is the classic Pelican case. Yes, the Pelican case. These are the bags you hear people talk about all the time, that they're basically bomb-proof, which is true. You can pretty much do whatever you need to, like, to try and torture this thing, and it'll survive, which is crazy. However, they are big and heavy and very rigid. And so it makes it harder when I'm traveling because it has a lot of base weight already, so it's less equipment that I can fit inside. Also, the rigid structure doesn't give me any give for trying to squeeze a little extra equipment in. And one last thing that's a con about it is I can't attach a tripod or anything to this because there's no spot to do it. It will keep your gear safe though. Doesn't matter what your conditions are, waterproof, like crush proof essentially. If you have to throw stuff under the plane, this is definitely a great solution. But the way that I travel, I'm not usually running into that kind of situation except for like tripods and some light stands, which I'm able to put into a rolling duffel bag, which is another video. I'll link to it up there, where we talk about the bags I use, why we use them, specifically from Ethiopia. And last but not least, my creme de la creme, my favorite type of bag, the hiking backpack. There's really two companies out there right now that are making bags that I use and like this style of. It's Shimoda Design and F-Stop Gear. I have used bags from both companies. My personal preference now is Shimoda because of the fact that they have this adjustable height backpack strap suspension system, which being 6'6", a lot of smaller backpacks, like sit super high at my hips, so it's not comfortable for me to carry a lot of weight for the whole entire day. Things that I thoroughly enjoy about this bag is when you set it on the ground, you're not setting it on the part that your back's gonna be touching, you're actually setting it on like the front of the bag. And then inside the bag is completely adjustable with different size containers for different amounts of equipment and different types of equipment depending on what your job calls for. And that's great because I could have a job where all I need is one A7 camera and I can take one of these little things, whereas there are other jobs that I would need an FS5, an A7, and 4 lenses that I would need a much larger container inside for all of that equipment. And being able to take that smaller thing lets me pack more other stuff into the bag so I have less bags that I have to carry. Also, you could squeeze a laptop in here if I needed to. Lately, I've been carrying my laptop sleeve next to this just because of the types of travel I've been doing. I haven't needed it. And a lot of these bags also come with weather sealed zippers and things like that, which I absolutely love. And on the outside, you've got all of these straps, which let you carry tripods, light stands, snowshoes, skis, you name it, whatever you got to carry on the outside, it gives you that opportunity, which I absolutely love because I'm starting to do a little bit more outdoor stuff, and it gives me the ability to just attach stuff on to the outside. Perfect example was when I was up in Banff last month. We had snowshoes on the back here, tripod on the bottom, tripod on the side, camera equipment inside, extra layers inside, food inside. Gave me a lot of what I needed for that specific situation. And that's why I'm using these types of backpacks, and I will continue to use them. They are great for when I'm overseas. I am able to pick up the bag and everything with it and just adapt because we're having ever-changing situations, which I'll showcase right here. That gives you an idea of kind of why I use backpacks. If I'm doing a job overseas where I have some equipment that's going to be in a bag to get to location and then it's not going back in a bag. So a perfect example is usually the FS5 stays out of the bag. Link to the Ethiopia gear video right here where it explains that. And so if I do that, I might take the roller with this type of bag, but like smaller or less stuff inside this bag. So that way the big stuff that's going to be out of a bag once I hit location, I'm not hauling it through an airport, but at the same time it's protected. And so kind of adapting based off the job is huge when it comes to deciding what bags I'm using, why I'm using them, and so on and so forth. If you guys have any questions about bags, leave a comment down below. If you guys have any other bags that you'd suggest I try out, let me know as well. I love hearing about how different people are making different things work. And so every job is different, every situation is different. So you might have a tidbit that someone could pick up from what you've experienced. And that's what this whole community is all about here on YouTube. So other than that, be sure you're subscribed and hit the little bell notification so you know when we upload the next video. Have a great week. I'll see you guys next time.